and welcome to this week's DSS Break. It's great to have you with us today. I'm here live every other week to discuss the world of data science and machine learning, and we chat about unique experiences and best practices with leading data professionals in a 15-minute break. I'm Anna Anderson, the founder of Data Science Salon, and today I'm streaming directly from our HQ, which is beautifully located here in the Design District, which is in the heart of Miami. And today I'm really excited to welcome Eric Landry, a distinguished figure in the realm of healthcare and AI. Eric has over 25 years of experience across healthcare, travel, and computing industries. And beyond his professional achievements, including holding a master's in software engineering with a thesis on NLP from UI of Texas and Austin, and securing 3 US patents, Eric is also recognized for his contributions to machine learning engineering discussions and his roles at prominent companies like Babylon Health and Expedia. And today, Eric will dive into innovating healthcare through AI, a pursuing subject that highlights the transformative impact of AI tech in healthcare, which is really important, and his expertise in developing AI-based solutions, especially in enhancing patient care through chatbots and ML, promises to shed light on the advancements that are not only reshaping healthcare practices, but also improving the outcomes for patients significantly. Thank you so much for joining us for the DSS Break episode today, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, why don't we go ahead and dive right in? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what got you interested in data science and engineering in the first place?
Yeah, so my journey started when I got laid off during the dot-com bust. I was working at a local company called Trilogy, and after the layoffs, I had intended to take some time off. My son at the time was a toddler, and so I thought it was a good time to take a break. Halfway through that break, I decided to go back to school and study a master's in software engineering at University of Texas right here. During those studies, I took several courses in data science. At the time, everything was known as data mining, and this kind of spurred my interest, in which case I then went and wrote my thesis on NLP. After I completed my studies, Austin wasn't really a hotbed for this type of opportunities. So I took this passion and did a lot of home projects, and any place I worked, I tried to get leadership to buy into some kind of project for me. In fact, when I worked at Dell, I got a hold of some customer support call logs and tried to do some work with that, and couldn't get leadership to buy into what I was doing. During this time, I also participated in a Netflix prize contest. If anybody remembers this, I was able to improve the Netflix team by close to 2%, short of the 10%, which would be the $1 million prize. But it was, yeah,
that's significant. Still 2%. I mean, that matters.
Yeah, I felt pretty good about it. But anyway, continuing on with the work, and then in and out of trying to get something started. When I was working at a company called HomeAway, a vacation rental company that became Verbo when we got acquired by Expedia, we started building a data science team, in which case I started getting involved in that work. And at the time I was leading the conversation platform team. So we integrated some of the machine learning models into our conversation stream. From there, that led me into working on chatbots for vacation rentals. And then I became the lead for the machine learning engineering teams. And when we got fully acquired into Expedia, it became a rather large group. I left there and then went to Babylon, where I was leading the AI and conversation platform teams, where we're building chatbots.
So that's how you got into the healthcare industry?
Yeah. So I've been in and out of healthcare throughout my career. So when I was first starting out writing software, I worked at Xerox, where I was working on a new drug application publishing application. The FDA requires pretty constrained requirements around how these documents are published, and they can be up to 1 million pages. So I worked on that for a while, and then later I worked for a healthcare company called Healthcare Control Systems. We managed resources around surgical centers, and then from there into Babylon.
Cool. No, thanks for sharing that. I know that your master thesis is focused on NLP. How do you see the evolution of NLP from when you completed your thesis to the current state of where large language models are today?
Yes. So I'm going to sound like a grandpa here, but I completed my master's in 2005. I was studying document clustering algorithms on a corpus of scientific articles about genetics. The tech at that time was bag of words, TF-IDF. I experimented with different k-means using cosine similarity for doing the clustering. At the time, the big challenge was compute resourcing, memory and processing power. At the time, I was working at Sun Microsystems, and so I would take my thumb drive with my algorithms and sneak into the lab where we had all the hottest hardware at the time, because my little computer at home would crash overnight, usually when I tried to run the algorithms. All the algorithms I wrote in Java, and there was an application called Weka. I used that a bit. There was no scikit-learn or TensorFlow at that time. When I finally did get around to learning scikit-learn in Python, it was kind of mind-boggling that I could actually loop over all those algorithms. I didn't have to write them. And then we were training models for chatbots at Homeway or Verbo at the time. I was able to train embeddings on a year of messages, something like 80 million messages.
Wow.
And then NER, recently I was working on LLMs to do NER, and it took me literally maybe an hour to come up with the proper prompt to extract the entities I was looking for. Thinking about how that was done in the past, it would have been weeks, months to do the data labeling and then train the algorithms, experiment with the algorithms. So, and then intent models versus LLM chatbots. So it's just been pretty amazing, the progress in that amount of time. Does anybody remember the Iris data set anymore?
I'm not a data scientist myself, but I'm sure there's people that do remember that one. And I think you said that the compute power has been solved. And I know that, what do you still see like some of the most pressing challenges? Is it the amount of data? Is it like, what is like I know some of the challenges, but what do you think are still the challenges that are really haven't really been solved yet by engineering today?
Yeah, I guess the algorithms get more and more hungry, so there's probably always going to be a compute bottleneck at some point. The data processing and how we transform the data, how we access the data is a real challenge, especially in healthcare where you have pretty constrained security and privacy. Those are those are the challenges I see in front of us, at least from what the work I've done.
Cool. No, thanks for sharing that. And let's talk a little bit about leadership and team, since you've been in so many different roles of leadership. What are some lessons that you learned by, kind of fostering innovations within your teams when you were working at these organizations?
Yeah, this is something I'm pretty passionate about, is innovation, and how to when you're working in corporate America, how do you, or corporate anywhere, how do you balance, delivering value to the business and fostering innovation? On my teams, I've tried different things. some of them more successful than others. It also kind of depends on the team. So you kind of have to know your team. I tried, the 20% thing, where, I would specify a certain day of the week or whatever. Depends on who the people are. Some people just want to work, they don't want to innovate, they just want to get the job done. And also they feel pressure too, right? What I found was probably most useful was just let individuals explore and take the time and give them space to do that and foster a culture of innovation. On one of my teams, we had a standing meeting, where what we called "there are no bad ideas." So we would sit around the table in a meeting room with a six pack of beer on the table and just talk about stuff. And the the name of the meeting came from when we first started this. Some people would get critical about, like, well, that's a bad idea. Well, what we learned was that sometimes bad ideas lead to good ideas, like, yeah, that's good, but what about this? You know what I'm saying? So fostering culture and that kind of free environment, I think, was probably most useful.
Cool. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And let's go back to chatbots and LLMs. How do you think this has really changed the patient user experience? It sounds like that definitely has, but I wanted to kind of hear how you've been working on this and what you've been working on.
Yeah, I think, right, at least in my experience, it's kind of too early to tell how LLMs are going to impact that. I mean, clearly there's value in chatbots. But at Babylon, we had just deployed chatbots for our clinical support teams. So we would automate responses. We were able to deflect, I think, 40% of the requests for information from the live agents. So clearly there's value. I think people are not happy with chatbots. I don't know how else to say it. I think I'd read some surveys where, like, something about only 20% of the people feel comfortable using chatbots. I think it's primarily, in my view, is primarily because people want to feel like they're having a real conversation rather than this kind of canned experience. Just a good example. One of the every time I see a chatbot, I test it just to be clear. I went to one chatbot recently, and it was asking me to talk to it in a specific way. And I was like, well, I shouldn't have to learn how to talk to the chatbot. It should learn how to
The other
talk to
way
me.
around. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah. And so I think that's where LLMs can help us, by giving us a true, more conversational experience. So I think, and that's the open challenge for us, to learn how to train chatbots to speak on a more personal level.
Right. And I guess now, what about, such things as privacy, right? Like, how do we, make sure that that's all kind of taken care of if we're putting out these bots and training and running data through them and all of this?
Yeah.
You have your personal
Yeah.
security or all those things that you're sharing, right? I feel like that's where kind of the risks are.
Yeah, this is a real tension, right? Because in, data science, we need data, right? But there's a tension because, getting access to the data. I think in this regard with chatbots, the simplest approach, or, well, the obvious approach, or I don't know if it's simplest or obvious, but hosting your own models. Right now, you've got ChatGPT and other API-based models. I believe Azure supports HIPAA compliance. ChatGPT doesn't. So you have to choose which models you're using.
Right.
If you take an open source one, you can, host it yourself. That has other challenges. How you store the data and how you access the data is always going to be a challenge. And it's good to have a good legal team with, giving you what are the laws and how do you comply with them. I think there's a tendency to kind of over comply, out of safety. but how do you find the right balance is the kind of the challenge.
Right. No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, where do you see the future here, especially concerning the patient interaction and care delivery in healthcare? If it's not necessarily all chatbots, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the opportunities are not just in kind of like clinical solutions. Um, if you look at the overall healthcare system, you will find anybody, at least in the US, will find inefficiencies in the healthcare system. Anybody that's had an experience with it. And it goes to both sides, both from the care providers and the patient. How do we so I recently read an article about compliance with healthcare needs, like patients being compliant with the prescriptions. This is the article is from the NIH and published in 2019. Their claim was there were 100,000 preventable deaths at the cost of $100 billion of unnecessary medical costs.
Wow.
I mean, it's mind-boggling, right? Because people aren't taking their medication. Like, how do we seek better engagement from patients? I believe that AI can help in different areas for this. On the care provider side, I think another report I'd read recently that 50% of physicians feel burned out, right? How do we relieve some of the administrative work, or how do we make them more efficient so they can spend their time with the patients and not feel burned out by the administrative work or other work? So I think there are tons of opportunities from all different levels of the system.
Right. No, that makes sense. There's so many different little things to fix there. Well, last question for you. I know that you're doing some contract work, and can you share a little bit of what you're involved in? I know that you mentioned a startup or something you're working on.
Yeah. So currently I'm working with a healthcare startup called Zeto Health. It's very early. The mission is to reduce health disparities amongst Black and Hispanic populations. The goal is to bring AI to this problem, and you leverage these technologies to reduce those disparities. So it's a way that we can use AI. I know there's a lot of kind of fear about the bias in AI, but
Right.
and let's use it to reduce the bias.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really cool technology and going to a good cause. And thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see once you guys come out of stealth and learn more about it. And thank you so much for spending time with us today, Eric, and for sharing your experience with the audience. It was a pleasure to have you. And if you guys really enjoyed Eric's talk or what we talked about today, Eric is going to be speaking about chatbots and healthcare practitioners' journey from intent to models to LLMs in person on March 20th. So I hope to see some of you there. And if you can't join us in person, you can always tune in virtually. So we'll see you there. And Eric and everybody else, I hope that you guys have a good rest of the week and weekend.
Great. Thank you. Nice to visit. Bye.